to Self-Advocacy in Action. Hi, I'm Michael Lettman, and I'm an interviewing host for Essay in Action. Today, I'm interviewing these two fellow advocates, Jeff Sanderson and Samuel Mattle. Hi, you guys.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
And I would like to ask both of you some questions about your excellent work.
Sure, that would be fine.
Let's get started. Here we go. My first question is, what is the Partnership Coalition and how did it start?
Well, Michael, the Partnership Coalition has been around now for maybe 16, 17 years, started around the year 2004. And it really was an initiative that then OPWDD Commissioner Tom Mall was responsible for. And he really felt like people receiving services should have a much stronger voice in the decisions that were getting made by not only OPWDD, but all the agencies that were being funded by OPWDD. So he called together self-advocates and agency leaders and people from OPWDD from all across the state and encouraged everybody to set up regional coalitions so that there could be a regular dialogue between the people that really had a stake in what was going on in our service system. And our Western New York Partnership Coalition was very enthusiastic, very active. Sam and I were involved in it all the way back from the beginning. And we had regular meetings every month with the DDSO director and lots of participation from many self-advocates and provider representatives. And we've had many years of good dialogue. So that's really how it got started. Now, what we found out was that these coalitions all kind of went by the wayside around the state, and the only one that kept going was us. And so all these years later, we are still in existence, and recently we kind of reinvigorated our coalition to try to bring our perspective up to the current day and kind of focus on current issues and maybe give the coalition a more modern way of seeing itself. So that's at least a starting point. Sam, you may have some things you want to throw in there, but that's kind of the beginning of the background.
No, I think you did just fine.
Oh, thank you, Sam. So, today Michael, we created a new mission statement for ourselves. We've had this all along. We had a mission many years ago, but we updated it recently. And what we expressed is that we are a coalition of diverse voices advocating for collaboration that promotes best practices and true inclusion of people with disability in all aspects of life. That's our mission today.
Fascinating. You two have done excellent work with your advocating work. You guys have been busy.
Yes, we have.
Okay, I will continue with your next question. Who is involved with the Partnership Coalition?
The active members, as we know right now, as Sanderson, People Incorporated, Center for Self-Advocacy, and that's. Do you have any more?
Those are some of the most active involvements. We also have a great partner in the Erie County Office for People with Disabilities. Frank Camerata is the executive director there, and he's been a very good member. We have people still from OPWDD involved coming to our meetings, and some of the other agencies that have been fairly active include like Community Services for Everyone, LDA, Empower, Allegheny Arc, IDA of Western New York, autism services. These are agencies that have stayed involved with us. But I think Sam is starting in the right place in terms of what the nucleus has been over time. And Sam and I most recently agreed to be the co-chairs of the coalition. So we're, personally, we're especially invested in the coalition and our mission and the future of the coalition.
Yeah, so a lot of things that and thank you, Jeff, for doing that.
Sure.
A lot of things that we do right now, we just got finished with the COVID-19 pandemic survey to help us understand what were the issues that people were dealing with during COVID. And that was a very interesting and important thing that we needed to do as the Partnership Coalition to evaluate and see where people with disabilities that receive services were. And that was that was a very important thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Michael, what some of the things that were learned by that survey, we surveyed, well, we had about 135 people living with disabilities from about 17 different counties around the Western and Central New York area responded to our online survey. And we saw that people were, in many cases, having to go without their staff during the pandemic due to not only the pandemic's, the threats of the pandemic, but also just staffing shortages that were happening at the agencies. And people also, in some cases, were struggling with technology or not having technology or access to technology. So those are some things that are an important focus for us now going forward to try and see how we can support improvements in people's lives with respect to staffing supports and technology.
Yep, and another current focus is the staffing crisis that we see in Western New York and across New York State. So what we're doing with the staffing crisis is to understand where everybody's coming from. Recently, we had a couple of meetings to understand where the direct support professionals were coming from and the families that receive services from the direct support professionals and an agency perspective. This past month, we got a chance to talk about the home health care AIDS crisis for people that live more in the community, and they help them get up in the morning and things like that. And what is the difficulty with that as well? So we have a perspective that we had that's here that we needed to understand where everybody was coming from, because the Partnership Coalition necessarily is more, we will support a topic, we will support an agenda. We don't physically do any action, but we do give our support into different actions that are happening that the Partnership Coalition decides that they want to support.
Yeah, and I think, we've certainly, our pandemic survey being a most recent example, we certainly have been active in reaching out and communicating and gathering information and then sharing that information. So in that respect, we are undertaking action steps but it's not necessarily the hands-on work that the service providers are in place to do. So it's really more about illuminating the critical issues that are affecting people with disabilities at the current time, supporting the voice of people who live with disabilities, increasing awareness in the community so that people can have some kind of impetus for wanting to take action. And another thing we've really spent time doing, and I think we continue to include in our mission, is to highlight and encourage best practices by providers and others who are really doing a great job supporting people with disabilities. Historically, our coalition has focused on people living with developmental disabilities and the service system that supports them. But most recently, we're expanding our definition of who we want to provide help to and who we want to have involved with us. So we're currently looking at how we can expand and support people with all different disabilities, not only developmental disabilities.
Right. So we're looking for different organizations in the future to join the partnership coalition to get a wider perspective of what's going on in the disability community and with the agencies that provide services to them. But at the same time, that gave us a chance with the pandemic survey, that gave us a chance to reach out to not just people with developmental and intellectual disabilities, but all disabilities on that aspect, because we wanted to know, what was affecting them during COVID-19.
Yeah, I think what we saw from the survey responses is there was a lot of commonality in terms of the challenges people were experiencing.
Wow, you two have been very, very busy. Despite during the pandemic, despite the staff, despite the struggles that people with disabilities were having, especially during the pandemic. Boy, a lot of work you guys had to do.
Well, the truth is, Michael, Sam and I do like to be busy, and we both have our regular full-time jobs. I work in administration at People Inc. And Sam, of course, leads the Center for Self-Advocacy. And so, we have, busy lives in that way, but we also see the value in collaborating with each other, and bringing organizations together. It's really worth the time and effort to do that, because good things come from it when we all support each other and, work toward building a common agenda.
Right, and you want to build that foundation. We want to build that foundation for the future, because we know that the partnership coalition is a very important piece of the Western New York disability community. And we want to reach out to people more and more and get some of those ideas, concerns onto the table to talk about them, to make decisions on what we can support. For example, you might sit there and say, what about different cultures and races with people with developmental, intellectual, and all disabilities? How are they affected? These are the kinds of things as the partnership coalition moves along that I can see them going forward and allowing people to see us as a productive committee coalition that people want to join, or people that want to get the support of the coalition into what they're advocating for. And that's why I think, and I know the Partnership Coalition can and hopefully will be a point of reference to other agencies and other systems across New York State.
I have to say, Samuel, well, many complicated work you guys have to do, but you know, wouldn't mind being very busy with it. Those are your jobs.
That's right. Yeah. You know, I think we see that from everyone on the coalition. There are a number of self-advocates. I may not have made that entirely clear when I kind of listed off a number of organizations that are probably familiar to people watching, but there are many dedicated self-advocates that participate in the monthly coalition meetings. And they have, you know, many of whom have been involved just as long as Sam and I have, you know, over a long time. So that, you know, there's a dedicated group of people who really are interested in improving our society, you know, and in particular for people living with disabilities, because of you know, the unique set of challenges that face people with disabilities in society as we know it today. So you know, Sam, I think, is alluding to the idea that this is really, I think of it as a movement. And we have an opportunity to be involved and to do what we can do, but we also know that it will have to continue beyond us, right? We'll have to, you know, be able to hand that off to the next generation of people, because this is a long, you know, a long-term process. It's not something that happens overnight. So I feel like we're making a dent in you know, the issues of the day, but it's you know, something that requires really a lifelong commitment.
Well, that info that you gave so far, I wonder if you managed to answer this question, and I didn't pay attention to it much. What is your mission?
Oh yes, yeah. So we did talk about this earlier, but let's remind everybody what that mission is. And we got together, by the way, Michael, in 2019, before the pandemic. Of course, then we didn't know there was going to be one. And we talked about our history and where we think we need to go next. And we had many of the organizations that I mentioned were there. They had people representing, and many self-advocates were there. Sam and I were there. And we talked about all of the different opportunities for us. And so we did really boil that down into what we hope is a very compelling and simple statement, which reads like this: we are a coalition of diverse voices advocating for collaboration that promotes best practices and true inclusion of people with disabilities in all aspects of life. So that's what our mission is. And each month when we meet, we talk about how we can do something that will be most impactful to carry out that mission.
I see. A lot you need to provide for the disability community, all the help you need to give them, which is involved with your mission.
Exactly. So I think you know, it's in our name too. You know, I think, you know, what we want to achieve is partnership. And we used to think of partnership as really people receiving services and the service providers and OPWDD. That was the partnership between those three constituencies. But now, when we got back together more recently in 2019, we said, you know, we need to look outward. We need to see ourselves as part of the whole broader community, and see many. And then when we do that, we see many partners: government, community, you know, community organizations, community causes and movements. You know, everybody that's in the community is a potential partner to us. Foundations. So we're trying to move beyond just thinking about how things work inside the service system. That's really not truly, inclusive. So true inclusion, which is what we say in our mission, means being a full part of one's community. And so if we don't connect with the whole community, then that's not consistent with the vision that we have for our coalition and for our society.
And I would say not to eliminate, the advocacy that people with developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities are doing, people who are mental health advocates and what they're doing. We're not trying to, put that all together. We want them to recognize each other for what they're doing and build on that. So we want to be able to recognize everything that agencies, systems, and people that are provided services through those agencies and systems a chance to have a voice and a chance to work together.
Right. You can't have partnership unless everyone has a voice. And the concept of partnership really suggests that there be an equal strength in those voices. And so I think that's part of our mission, Michael, is to make sure that we do whatever we can to support people in having a voice.